7:32 p.m. Eastern Time on a Sunday. You are, putting away that last load of laundry. You flip open the laptop just to clear out a couple of lingering emails before Monday morning. You settle into that very specific, quiet bubble of a weekend evening.
Going about those mundane tasks feels like locking the door against the chaos of the outside world.
That bubble shatters violently at the 20,000 block of North Park Drive in Ashburn, Virginia. Mia Bieniemy, 57 years old, is shot inside the home she shares with her husband.
It requires immediate medical intervention for serious injuries from first responders at the scene. Loudoun County Sheriff's Office spokesperson Leah Powell confirmed she received treatment before her physical status was eventually upgraded to stable.
We shift the focus from those flashing ambulance lights in Loudoun County and drop it 1,000 miles away onto the campus of Missouri Western State in St. Joseph, Missouri. Eric Bieniemy is standing on a grass field conducting the Kansas City Chiefs' second training camp practice.
You exist inside this hyper-managed ecosystem. Like every single minute of an NFL training camp answers to a blown whistle or a laminated schedule.
A phone call forces this catastrophic collision between that rigid artificial structure and the sheer chaos of domestic trauma.
Geography distorts the reality of the crisis. You receive devastating information through an earpiece. Your visual field contradicts that information entirely. You see offensive linemen running blocking drills. You hear the popping of shoulder pads.
Being at an NFL practice when your family is attacked feels like being locked inside a sensory deprivation tank while someone tells you over a radio that your house is burning down.
The sensory input of the training camp signals extreme routine and, total control. The auditory input from the phone call signals chaos and a total loss of control.
You are surrounded by manufactured intensity. Guys are hitting each other. Coaches are screaming about gap assignments.
You remain paralyzed, unable to reach through the glass to affect the actual tragedy unfolding 1,000 miles away.
I struggle to understand how human panic functions when the person is physically trapped inside a professional obligation of this magnitude.
When you are standing on a sun-bathed football field in Missouri, a shooting in Virginia must feel like an abstraction rather than an immediate physical reality.
The brain desperately clings to the immediate physical environment for context.
The geographic distance prevents any sensory validation of the crisis. You do not see the police tape. You do not smell the hospital antiseptic. The victim exists as a concept rather than a physical reality requiring immediate assistance.
Wait, I challenge this idea of total paralysis, though. People leave their jobs all the time for family emergencies. They get in a car, they go to the airport. We treat an NFL training camp like a locked vault, which is insane. The moment he gets that call, the laminated schedule becomes irrelevant. He hands the clipboard to an assistant and walks away. He possesses the autonomy to leave the facility immediately.
Physical autonomy exists. Psychological conditioning restricts it entirely. The NFL environment programs individuals to prioritize the collective team above personal welfare. Coaches preach tunnel vision from the lowest levels of the sport.
They construct an environment where the most important thing on earth is the literal execution of a screen pass on a Tuesday morning.
Missing a repetition is framed as a moral failure. Leaving the facility during practice is an anathema to football culture. The transition demands a violent rewiring of the nervous system.
The brain has to flesh out the adrenaline of a competitive sports practice and replace it with the terror of a medical crisis. The league demands absolute presence. The schedule worships the upcoming season.
A bullet tears through a home in Virginia. The offensive coordinator must somehow exist in two realities simultaneously. One reality demands a scheme for a third down conversion. The other screams that his wife is in an emergency room.
Institutional momentum ignores individual catastrophe. NFL training camps are designed to eliminate outside variables. When real-world violence penetrates that isolation, the system does not stop to grieve.
The whistle blows again. The next drill starts. The schedule acts as a physical force dragging the individual forward even as their personal life disintegrates.
Organizations build invisible walls against these outside disruptions. We see this manifested perfectly in the Kansas City Chiefs' official public response to the shooting. A violent act occurred. A human being was severely injured.
The organization releases a deeply sterile statement. The literal phrasing, released to ESPN, reads that the team is aware of the incident involving Eric Bieniemy's family.
Corporate entities sanitize bleeding realities into manageable incidents. They deploy linguistic caution to strip away emotional resonance.
The word incident neutralizes the violence. A gunshot wound requires an ambulance and police tape. An incident requires a brief internal memo and a minor adjustment to the afternoon practice schedule.
I have to defend the organization here. If the Chiefs release a statement detailing the horrific nature of the shooting, they invite intense media scrutiny. They risk violating the privacy of the family.
A corporation must rely on sanitized language to protect itself and the individuals involved.
You cannot expect a professional football team to issue a deeply emotional press release about a private domestic trauma. The sterile language acts as a protective barrier for the victim.
Privacy protection and brand management represent entirely different operational goals. The statement functions primarily as a liability shield. Public relations departments operate on algorithms of risk reduction.
The word shooting triggers secondary media inquiries. It invites questions about domestic security.
The word incident acts as a linguistic dead end. It offers no new information. It provides no hook for a follow-up question.
The goal is to make the statement so exceptionally boring that reporters move on to the next topic.
They treat a hospitalized spouse with the literal same linguistic caution they applied to a tweaked hamstring on the Tuesday injury report.
The statement minimizes a near-fatal shooting to an administrative hurdle,
It protects the corporate identity from the messy reality of human suffering,
stripping the victim of her humanity entirely for a press release.
substituting genuine empathy with aggressive risk management protocols.
The sheer administrative boredom of the statement is terrifying. They are treating a life-or-death medical emergency like a weather delay during a preseason game.
The communication strategy actively conditions the public to view the shooting as a minor logistical issue for the football team. The consumer can relax knowing the offensive coordinator position is being managed.
A completely frictionless press release leaves zero emotional residue. You read it and feel nothing. The corporation successfully isolates the trauma outside its fortified walls.
The machine keeps running. The reality of a woman fighting for her life in a hospital bed is systematically erased from the corporate record.
Media entities adopt this same terrifying detachment. ESPN published the initial report of the shooting. They chose to append a specific set of career bullet points directly to the bottom of the article.
They noted that Bieniemy rejoined the Chiefs earlier this year in 2026 as offensive coordinator, a role he previously held from 2018 to 2022.
Standing on the sidewalk waiting for the paramedics to arrive, watching the flashing red lights reflect off your front door, and someone taps you on the shoulder to hand you their freshly printed business card.
That is the literal cognitive disconnect this article creates. You read about serious injuries and suddenly you are force-fed a timeline of his employment history.
We are reading about a woman fighting for survival. The publication ensures we do not forget the years her husband spent diagramming screen passes.
Does the sports media apparatus actively condition audiences to only care about human lives if they are tied to a recognizable coaching pedigree?
We package tragedy as a subset of sports trivia. The victim becomes a secondary character in a narrative built entirely around the husband's professional value to a football franchise.
The article structurally implies that the shooting matters primarily because it happens to a person who diagrams football plays for a living.
I push back on the idea that the media is intentionally malicious with this formatting. These platforms operate on strict editorial templates. A journalist writes a story about a public figure.
The style guide mandates the inclusion of relevant biographical information to provide context for the reader.
The career bullet points provide necessary factual background. It seems like a leap to call a standard biographical paragraph a grotesque prioritization of sports data.
Context implies relevance. The inclusion of the 2018 to 2022 timeline serves no journalistic purpose regarding the crime itself. It serves only to justify the article's existence within the sports ecosystem.
Standard operating procedure in sports journalism frequently prioritizes statistical data over human dignity.
Digital journalism relies heavily on search engine optimization. An article must capture the maximum number of search queries to generate revenue.
People search for Eric Bieniemy's coaching history. They search for his return to Kansas City. The publisher embeds those keywords into a story about a violent crime to capture that search traffic.
The algorithm does not recognize the intrinsic value of Bieniemy's life. It solely recognizes her proximity to NFL coaching statistics.
We consume news through a lens demanding everything be categorized and tied back to the entertainment product we prefer.
The reader clicks on a headline about a shooting. They are immediately reassured that the person affected is important to the upcoming fantasy football season.
The editorial desk does not view this as a tragedy affecting a family. They view it as a high-traffic keyword event.
They optimize the pain, literally formatting the trauma to ensure it ranks on the first page of search results.
We are trained to consume other people's nightmares as supplementary content for our sports hobbies. News aggregators and sports journalism platforms operate on a principle of continuous engagement.
The story about a random shooting generates mild local interest, while a headline about the wife of the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator generates national clicks and prolonged screen time.
The tragedy is heavily commodified. The serious injuries are transformed into digital inventory.
The architecture of the internet forces publishers to staple coaching resumes to ambulance reports. The financial model of modern media requires the optimization of human suffering.
When the article concludes with his coaching resume, it implicitly invites the reader to speculate on how this personal disaster will impact the team's offensive efficiency. It pulls them forcefully back toward the sports product.
You are sitting there, reading the piece on your phone. You start by feeling sympathy for a gunshot victim. By the end of the final paragraph, your brain is actively processing how this might affect the Chiefs' regular season record.
The structure of the article weaponizes your own sports fandom against your basic human empathy. The inclusion of the 2026 return date specifically anchors the tragedy to the current news cycle.
The individual woman in the hospital bed becomes a minor plot point in the overarching narrative of the NFL season.
Her survival is framed as relevant primarily as it relates to her husband's ability to call plays on Sunday afternoons.
The sports media apparatus actively trains the consumer to evaluate human life through the prism of franchise success.
The NFL operates with an unyielding, terrifying momentum. The games march forward.
The sports ticker running across the bottom of the television screen never stops breathing. It demands constant updates and injury reports.
The collision between that mechanical beast and the absolute fragility of a quiet Sunday evening at home exposes a chilling reality. Human beings exist inside that unforgiving system.
They are expected to process profound domestic trauma the second the cameras turn off, knowing the whistle will blow again at practice tomorrow.
We consume human tragedy as a brief commercial break between roster updates.
Modern media trains you to view a catastrophic shooting not as a moment to pause and reflect on human fragility, but as a minor piece of trivia to memorize before the opening kickoff.
You digest violence as a footnote to a depth chart.
The machine never stops to ask how the human survives.